Hey, my name's Spike Leo, and I bring fast to music production. If you want to go fast like Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you last. And so today we're going to go fast. We're going to get into some vocal production. We're going to learn the difference about Logic plugins versus Waves UAD. And well, you're going to be surprised. You're going to be surprised. And if you like fast food, well, you're in the right place, stranger, because we're going to get into some plugins today, and you're going to see the real difference between fire and fire, because they're both fire. All right, let's get into it. Alrighty then. So we are basically going to do Logic today, and we're going to talk about Logic plugins versus UAD and Waves plugins, and we are going to do it over vocals. Now, if we get straight into the door here, you may see that I have already recorded some vocals to save you guys some time of me trying to come up with something. So I'm going to play the sample that I have selected today. It is by, we don't know, Songstarter Crystal resampled. It's a great sample. Have a listen. Beautiful, right? I put some EQ on it just so we can really free up that space to get the vocals. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over Logic plugins first. Now, this is a really interesting experiment. One of the things I was most obsessed with when I was, coming up 13 years back was vocals. How do I get the vocals to sound great? And I'm going to show you the answer right now. So let's have a look. Listen to these vocals, absolutely raw with a whole bunch of nothing on it.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
Beautiful.
And I'll know not what to do, 'cause this love's got me hooked up on you.
Great, so I'm going to go through the first process of what I would do with these vocals, and really the first thing that I look at is the wave file. So you can see here if the performance is a bit uneven, sometimes I will literally go in and I'll start cutting things up. So I'll do this in any DAW, but say, there's a little bit of a peak here, and the reason that I do this is really to just not make the compressor work as hard, get a little bit more of an even performance, big chunks like this. Are we going to hear the cuts? No, we shouldn't really if we cut them nicely. And that's it. This one's fine. The compressor can play with that. This guy over here is a little bit chunky. I'm going to bring him down. Okay, so once I do that, these are some techniques I learnt from one of Justin Bieber's vocal engineers, and these are things that he does. After this, I would go into tuning. So I'm going to select this. Now, the one thing I love about Logic is flex. It is wonderful. And please God, one day soon, Ableton will adopt the same thing. Even Slow Tools, aka Pro Tools, has also adopted a manual auto tuner. And I just hate the idea of extracting a vocal, putting it into another program like Melodyne, and then bouncing it out. I just want workflow. It's all about workflow for me. So if we open this up, we're going to do this quite quickly. We're in the key of C# minor, so you have a few options here where you can really just select the scale and select natural minor. Now, I don't like to do this because I like to do things manually, so you don't have to do this over all vocals, okay? But for now, I'm going to press Command A, pitch correction 100, okay? Once we get everything kind of bounced in place. Now, if you're dealing with a really crappy singer, you're going to have to move things around quite a lot. And the way that I've done that over the years is by ear. But we are going to have a listen now to my vocal. Hopefully, I haven't done too bad of a job.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
Sounds okay. Let's go to this next bit.
Oh,
there we go. Okay, this little one here.
And I'll know.
That sounds a little bit under, so I'm going to highlight these two. There we go.
And I'll know not what to do.
A bit funny here. Pull that up.
I'll know not what to do.
We can get the vibrato, flatten this out a little bit.
I'll know not what to do.
Make things a little bit smoother. Now, the reason that I do the manual tuning first is if you want a really solid vocal, we don't want to put vocal into auto-tune and get the T-Pain effect, right? So we're basically going to run it through here.
Love's got me hooked up on you.
Beautiful, okay? Singing my poor little heart out. So once we do that, we've got the manual tuning, we've got the gain, staging nice, making sure that some are not too big, too small, etc. I'm going to go to our first thing, which is actually a noise gate. So if we have a listen at the start of the vocal here, we can hear the headphones. We can hear a bit of a lip smack, all that kind of stuff, yummy, yummy. And noise gate, essentially what a gate does is it closes the gate, opens the gate. Okay? And so we're closing the gate here. Absolute silence. And the gate will open when there's noise. Now we attach. Oh, dear Lord, it's been a long week. Okay, so we're going to adjust the threshold. And if we do too much, we're obviously going to be chopping off our vocal. We don't want to do that. So we just really use our ears. We still want some natural breaths to come through. Okay, so I might pull it back a little bit more. That sounds good. Sounds natural to me. Okay. And so once we have that cooking, it's getting rid of these silences. Now you can cut these silences out manually, like so. But I wouldn't want to cut out the breaths. What happens when we start cutting out breaths is the vocal performance sounds a bit unnatural. So, okay, it doesn't sound great when we have it with music and everything. So I leave those in. Sometimes if the vocal breaths are too big, okay, we can see this little nugget over here. I'll often just go into gain staging. This was a game changer for me that I had never thought about for years until an engineer said, yes, the breaths are a little bit loud. And I thought, oh, yes, I guess they are. And I never actually paid much attention. And you know what? The general public will not pay attention. But if we go like this, we can really just adjust this nugget of breath. And we can obviously have it louder. Woohoo, a little bit too much there. Pull that in like. We don't want that because it sounds completely crap, but we can pull it down and adjust it. It might suit the performance. It might suit the performance more to pull them down more. It's really up to you. It's your choice. Okay, moving on. Pitch correction. Now, this is all Logic plugins. I'm showing you how to make a vocal nice if I didn't have all the fancy stuff. Jason Joshua says, modern tools make modern records. He's not English in any way, but that's how he sounded in my head. And the thing is that it is true. Modern tools often allow us to make less brush strokes, which is great because it means we don't have to work as hard to do things that we used to 10 years ago. But, we can still get a really great result without using modern tools, which we're hopefully going to establish today. I'd love to see what you guys think. So pitch correction, we need to know what key we're in. Now, if you're not musically gifted, that is fine. There is an amazing plugin called, where are we? Mixed in Key Live. That's my little inner English person coming out. Mixed in Key Live is just a win-win. It's a little widget. Check out this widget over here, okay? And you basically press listen, you play the song, and you will get the BPM. I'm not going to do it now, but trust me, it is great. Get the BPM in the key of the song. Makes it much easier if you don't know. We are in the key of C sharp minor. So I've gone here, I've selected C sharp, okay, or D flat, and then we go natural minor scale. There's all these other scales, so it's valuable to know if you are in a different scale, but generally speaking, in Splice land, we're either in a major happy scale, which would just be major, or we're normally in a natural minor scale for, say, pop music and hip hop and the stuff that we're doing. So Logic has updated their pitch correction, still super crappy, but the great thing that we have is the tolerance here and response. And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I would. Okay, and the tolerance basically, if we go here. And I fall in love with you. When we get to things like vibrato. Love with you. Where the voice wobbles, we pull this off a little bit. Love with you. Love with you. It sounds a little bit more natural, and it is about making the vocal natural. If we go T-Pain, love with you, we get that wobble, which is quite disgusting. So again, this is just adjusting. If you're a great singer, you can probably pull this off to 1 to 200 milliseconds. If you're a totally crap singer, maybe go T-Pain. But if you're somewhere in between, you just want to adjust it where it sounds natural, where it's not working too hard, and we get a good sound, okay? The next thing that I like to focus on is saturation. Now, there's not many options. Another word for saturation could be distortion, and we're going to use a very slight distortion plugin in Logic. So I'm using this one here. Let's open her up. And I'm only on 0.5. And what you'll find is the tone is kind of down here. I've turned the tone up. Okay, output's on 0.
And I fall in love with you.
Turn it off.
And I fall.
So it gives us a little bit of a volume boost. It does, when we look at a vocal, generally speaking, there is going to be some frequencies coming through.
And I fall.
And we look where the most energy is, and distortion and saturation is really going to bring out more energy of different parts or sweet parts of the vocal that we wouldn't usually hear. Okay, so if we put this tone up, let's distort it more just for experiment's sake.
And I fall in love with you.
Which you may or may not want. I don't want it in this case, but I like a little bit of natural distortion because back in the day when they used to use preamps and consoles, you would sometimes, if the singer gave a little bit more, it would kind of hit the red and you get a little bit of natural distortion, which is very 60s, 70s, very sexy. I like it a lot. Today, we want everything clean, but for the sake of this track, And
I fall in love with you.
I think it sounds great. I love it. So we're keeping it. The next thing that I would focus on is a de-esser. And a de-esser really, I had a pet hate with sibilants. I really don't like the essers that come out in songs and they drive me crazy. And often when you have these really high detailed microphones, the S's are overpronounced and we're talking straight into the microphone and we get these really hard S's, and I really just want to bring that down. So I used to go too hard with this and it'd turn into a lisp, and so we'd have no S's and we sound a little bit like Bugs the Bunny. No, it's more Daffy Duck, isn't it? Thucker and Thuckatath, and all the Looney Tune characters. But if we go in here...
I fall in love with you. 'Cause there's nothing.
Now, obviously, we're going to hear the effect when there's S's. So,
'cause there's nothing I would. 'Cause there's nothing.
'Cause there's.
'Cause there's not.
On.
'Cause there's nothing.
So you're really just adjusting this to try and pull the sibilants down. It shouldn't be piercing your ears. Okay. After we do that, and also an important note is like what frequency. Well, I got told originally like around 3,400 hertz, 3.4K, or around the 6K mark. There can be some around the 10K mark. And when we get to our EQ over here, you can see I've dipped some in 6K. So let's talk about EQ now, okay? Let's turn these guys off.
'Cause there's nothing I wouldn't.
Now, as we saturate and distort, we're really enhancing frequencies. We're enhancing frequencies that don't have as much energy, which can be pleasing, but also we're bringing out frequencies that we may not like. So for me, in my voice specifically, it obviously depends on microphone, it depends on preamps or interfaces, it depends on singer. There's many factors. The more expensive the microphone, the more detail and stuff you get in it. And again, the less work you're doing. But through this SM7B, my voice is a bit lower, say, compared to the artist I developed, Augie. His voice is a bit higher, so I'm cutting out less 200 hertz for him. With me, I got big plums, right? Feel it right down in the plums. Okay, so in the plums, you got to pull the plums out a little bit less plum in the vocal. We don't like too much plum. All right, so back to it.
'Cause there's nothing.
This is this frequency here.
'Cause there's nothing I would.
So we're pulling that down.
'Cause there's nothing I would.
A little bit over, 350. And then over here we have the S.
'Cause there's nothing I would.
If you have a look here.
'Cause there's not. 'Cause there's not.
You can really see that frequency spike. So once you start to really read the matrix, you can really go in and have a look at what frequencies are bouncing and going a little bit harder, and we can start to pull those down a little bit. So my advice is, in the beginner stage of understanding EQ, we really, if we have a look at Logic here, we really just want to go like this because, wow, everything sounds better like this, but it's a bit more amateur. We want to really start with getting rid of what we don't want. Pull up, get rid, push up more, get rid of this. It's really just kind of a little bit of, it's like looking for dinosaur fossils. You take a little bit out, you sweep here, you try and pull it out, don't want to break it, go back, you dig a bit more. So it's a bit kind of like digging, getting rid of crap and then, putting it back. And what a terrible analogy. Anyway, let's move on. De-esser, we've gone over. Compression. What is compression? Now, I could do a whole video on compression, and I would love to. Thanks for asking. Compression is one of those things where, when you first start out and you look on the internet, you're reading, well, if you do 4 divided by 1 over 30 of a minus 30 threshold with the knee at 0.7 and then divide this attack time by this, you really feel like you need a rocket science degree. And I thought, wow, this is super frustrating. And I really had to go into compression using my ears because that's what we're doing essentially. And I think when I started having students, I really needed to understand how the hell am I going to explain compression. So I came up with an amazing theory. I'm going to make a video on that and I will hopefully post it somewhere here. But check. What do you think of that? So wait for my compression video. I speak many different languages if you're not aware. And we will go over compression. But for the most part, if we have a look here in Logic,
'cause there's nothing now.
We're adjusting the threshold. And if you look at this needle, look, I'm not obsessed with the technicalities and the numbers, but if you go, around -3 to -5, you're in a good way. So
there's nothing
try adjusting that threshold first. Which compressor you say? Well, studio feds usually for drums and stuff like that. Going for the vintage VCA compressor because this song sounds a bit vintagey and that's a lovely word. And also it's a bit more aggressive, this one, than the studio VCA. You'll hear it straight away.
'Cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
And I like the color of this one. Now, when we're talking about colors with compression, they're very slight, but there are colors with different compressors. Again, this is something we'll get into later. So attack, we want it to be we don't want to pull the frequency down too much and we lose transients, which means we lose the front of the word. We're going to pull this back, and the release we can do
'cause there's nothing I would
a little bit faster for the sake of today. Okay, so let's turn this off.
'Cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
And let's turn it on.
And I fall in love with you. 'Cause there's nothing I would.
As this compression comes up, we get a bit of volume. I'm going to pull the main volume down.
And I fall in love with you. 'Cause there's nothing.
And if I turn this off now,
And I fall in love with you.
we lose the beef. You know what I'm saying? We lose the body in. And I don't mind a bit of dynamics, but a lot of stuff is just crunched now. So if we want to get a really forward vocal, in many cases, there's quite a few different compressors working at any given time. So you might compress once, you might compress twice, but today with Logic, I'm using this one compressor. I'm going quite hard into it, and I like the sound coming out of it. Okay, after this, we're going to go into a channel EQ. I'm going to do a little dip at 200 hertz. As we compress, again, we're bringing up frequencies. We're bringing them up, and we want to kind of just adjust things as we go. So you'll hear here. You'll hear here.
And I fall in love with you. And I fall in love with you. 'Cause there's nothing.
It's quite a sweet vocal over the top now. And then at the end, I'm doing some additive EQ. So I've just done a few little bumps here. I like the 10 to 20K range. It really gives us some air and sparkle on top of the vocal. A little bell at 4K. So you can see at the beginning of my process, I'm really kind of, pulling frequencies down. And then at the end of my process, I'm pulling the frequencies up that I like. And it's a lot of kind of back and forward.
And I fall
So I'll turn this
in
off.
love with you. And I fall in love with you.
Turn it on.
And I fall in love with you.
Isn't that lovely? It gives it a little sparkle, to be sure. Okay, so now we're going to go into some effects. Okay, we've got our Logic plugins. Let's turn all of these off.
And I fall in love with you. 'Cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
nice and shiny, okay? At the start of the process, we really want to just make sure we're happy with the way that the gain is. Are there some parts that are too loud? Now, it really doesn't matter what mic you use. It just means the steps might have to be more aggressive. You know, when we watch things like Mix with the Masters, they're like, I do a little increment here, and I don't really do much here, and I have this $10,000 piece of equipment where I turn it at 0.5, and here I turn it at 1. My point is that, you know, they're using firstly, the best artists in the world. Secondly, the best equipment in the world, $15,000 mic, $10,000, $20,000 preamp. And then on top of that, they have the best engineer in the world. Before it gets to that mix engineer, the quality of audio and sound is incredible. So when we first start learning, we're like, how do I get that sound? And we don't have the best equipment. But once you really understand how to use the plugins, because they're your tools, we really need to get to a point where we really understand how to use the tools. And it just means bigger brush strokes. Bigger brush strokes. That's the secret. That's how you get a better quality sound. And okay, it's not ideal in the beginning, but at the end of the day, you really need to train your ears and use your ears. How can we get it sounding good or to a point of quality? And, you know, once you get to that point where I want to spend money and I want everything to sound amazing, then it really just comes down to, you know, what's the style? What's the flavor? And then we're like, how can I make it sound a little bit crappy? It sounds too good. And too good is not always great. All right, so let's get into this next bit. We're going to add some. So I've created there's a bus here, and we send it to this aux, and then on the aux, the first thing I have is a stereo delay, and I've put it as 16ths, left and right, okay? And when I add this in, let's have a listen.
And I fall in love with you. 'Cause there's nothing
It gives this little slap to the sides and it gives this illusion of width. And so I'm going to pull it back and just blend it in to taste.
And I fall in love with you. 'Cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
Nice, pleasant.
And I know not what to do. 'Cause this love's got me hooked up on you.
Okay, if I turn it off,
and I fall in love.
We get that dry vocal. So, you know, this is kind of pushing it a little bit back. It's giving us this little bit of delay. It's very, very lovely. And after that, I'm going to go into a reverb. I've used Space D. I've selected a plate, which is in medium, plate, soft plate. You know, this was the first plate or reverb I really learnt about, and different reverbs have different colors. This reverb was the one that I was told Michael Jackson used a soft plate, and you know, these were probably more readily available back then. I mean, there was other reverbs as well, but this was a really popular one and quite pleasant plate. So let's have a listen to this.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
Beautiful reverb. And in here we have a little output EQ, and you can see that I've done a shelf just getting rid of the lower frequencies up until about 200 hertz. Okay, so you can really shape the reverbs.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't.
I don't really want to reverberate the lower frequencies, so I've done that. After this, I've gone into a tape delay just to add a little bit of flavor, and with the tape delay, I've used a quarter note, an eighth note. Quarter note is over here. Eighth note, and then I've done a little bit of an EQ, and the reason that I've done that is I don't want to open the whole frequency, so let's have a listen with all of it open.
And I fall in love with you.
It's a little bit too much over the music as well.
And I fall in love with you.
Once I put this on, the EQ.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
Gives me that kind of dreamy bounce vibe, which I really like, and I've just added a little bit of that. So let's have a listen overall, and, you know, I'll chuck in, just to make it a bit more interesting, some sound effect. You heard it here first, another one. And I'm going to put in some drums as well. Check it out.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do. And I know not what to do, 'cause this love's got me hooked up on you.
I'll turn all this off.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
So we got the power, we got the presence, it's got a nice shiny vocal, and then we just add these effects to taste. You can do more or less, it's really up to you.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
You know, if you want a more present vocal, then we pull the effects back.
And I fall in love with you,
Still sounds great.
'cause there's nothing
Turn it
I
off.
wouldn't
That's dry.
do.
You know, dry is like if you're in a club and someone's next to you. Anyway, that is Logic plugins. And now what I want to get to is I want to get to UAD and Waves. Let's have a look here and we're going to do a comparison. Now, when it comes to UAD and Waves, there's plugins I like from both and I've used for years and years and years. You know, Slate Digital's also great, Plugin Boutique. There's lots of companies that are doing really, really fantastic plugins. Is it Plugin Alliance? Sorry, Plugin Alliance, Plugin Boutique. Plugin Alliance, great plugins. So there's not to say you can't get the same thing from other companies. At the end of the day, it's about trying and really just selecting what you enjoy using and what you like the sound of. That's how you become your own unique engineer and producer. Okay, so if we have a look here back at Logic and we get into our first thing, we wanted to compare noise gates. So one that I like to use is C-Suite.
And I fall in love with you. And I fall.
You know, it's quite pleasant. It's quite easy to use. This is by UAD, a bit more expensive, but on the cheap is NS1. Use this for years. Now, if you go too hard, you're going to really chop out a lot of the frequencies. If we just use it subtly, nothing, with absolute silence, you know, you can even go to like 10 and it still does its job. It's fantastic. I think it's like $20 or something like that. Next, we're going to go to auto tuning. Now, you know, I want to do a manual auto tune. So let's copy paste this one down because I've already done the manual auto tune there, which we did in flexi pitch. I'll just turn this on. There we go. All the work is hopefully done. I think, yes. Just that one went out, but that happens. Logic for you. Okay, we'll turn this off, and then I'm going to go into Antares. This is really the industry standard, and you know, worth investing in because it's just got that sheen, it's got that sound. So you have a few different options here: soprano, alto tenor, low male, instrument. I'm going to go somewhere in between because I go into soprano and probably, you know, close to low. C sharp minor again. Okay, return speed is, if we want T-Pain, 0. Good singers, you know, you'd be looking at the 30, 40 and above range. I'm probably in the 21 range, around there.
And I fall in love with you.
Humanize, keep it human. Flexi tune is kind of like that sense in the pitch correct for the Logic one, and that's really going to help us get a more natural vibrato. So if we have a listen to our vibrato here,
love with you, love with you,
you see if it's down, it really
love with you.
That sounds a bit more natural. So you just adjust to taste, okay? Once we have that locked in, I'm going to go through this relatively fast, and feel free to ask any questions. I will answer them. We're going to go into saturation. Now, I'm not going to go into great depth about why I chose this tape saturation, but there's many different plugins we can use and many different forms of saturation. There's ones from FabFilter, Pro Saturn, there's Oxide and Studer, there's, you know, from UAD, Waves, there's Kramer, there's J37, and there's another one I can't think of. There's really a big selection of different tape emulations, of tube emulations. They're all great. This one I'm using the tape. I'm at 30 inches per second, driving the input a little bit.
And I fall in love with you.
You know, always kind of drive it to 100, pull it back.
And I fall in love with you.
and that sounds quite pleasant. After that, we're going to go into EQ. Love Fab Filter. I've done the same kind of brush strokes as I've done with the channel EQ on the Logic ones.
And I fall in love with you.
You know, we kind of enhance that 200 hertz, which I don't love in my voice. I've pulled that down quite significantly, and then a little bit at 400 hertz, little dip here at 6K to get rid of the sibilance. Okay, we're going to go again into our De-esser. Soothe 2, absolute game changer. This one's a game changer.
And I fall in love with you.
I'll turn it off.
And I fall in love with you.
Let's go to the S's.
Cause there's nothing, cause there's nothing, cause there's nothing, cause there's nothing.
You know, you can go too hard on this for sure.
Cause there's nothing now.
That sounds good to me. We could probably even drop to 50, 40% to be honest. All right, from here we're going to go into our compression. I love the 1176 blue stripe. It's a little bit brighter than the dark ones. You know, very minute brush strokes again.
And I fall.
I'm looking at around -3, -5. That's not a general rule of thumb, and it really just depends on the size of the wave file. You know, if this is bigger, it's going to hit harder. If it's softer, it's not going to hit into the compressor. That's why the gain staging is really important, okay?
And I fall in love with you.
Slower attack, quicker release.
And I fall.
These ones are backwards just to make things complicated. 7 is fast and 1 is slow. Oh, goodness me. We already had so much to learn. After that, one of my favorite plugins, which I've used for probably close to 10 years now, is the Arvox. And this one is just magic compressor. You basically have one knob,
and
slider.
And I fall in love with you. And I fall in love with you.
And it really just pulls it.
And I fall in love with you.
Really pulls it forward quite aggressively. You can definitely go too much here. It's going to enhance your breaths and everything. So, you know, go slight, see where it feels good.
And I fall in love with you. 'Cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
You know, it's quite pleasant there. Again, compression is going to bring out other EQs and frequencies. Pro MB. You can make little nodes here where you can place where you like, and then you're using your threshold, which we'll go into in another lesson.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I would.
And it's essentially pulling these frequencies underwater. You can hold them underwater, you can release them quickly, you can keep them submerged. It depends how much it annoys you. For me, I'm gutting quite a bit of it. And then we're going to Additive EQ. Now, this is by far my favorite EQ. I've tried lots of additive EQs. We're adding things back. The reason I love the Harrison 32C, aside from the fact that it was used on Michael Jackson's voice, is because you can really push the high frequencies without them sounding super intrusive, which is really fantastic. You know, you want to be able to push them and make them bright and nice, and you don't want them to sound unpleasant. So here, have a listen with...
And I fall in love with you.
Without...
And I fall in love with you.
With...
And I fall in love with you. 'Cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
You know, you can really push the 10 to 13K and go hard, and it just is so lovely. Let's go to this bit here so you don't go crazy.
And I'll know not what to do, 'cause this love's got me hooked up on you.
Okay, really beautiful. And sometimes I bring a little bit of the low end back if I've scooped too much out. Okay, so once we have a look here, I'm going to add my plugins. Echo Boy, one of my favorites, same thing. I'm doing 15 inches per second. It's a little kind of kick on it. Have a listen.
And I fall in love with you.
Just to put it into a space and a little bit back, also gives that width. After that, I do a little bit of EQ. So I just kind of kill the lows. Low mids, we would say, mid lows, low mids, who's counting? And then after that, we go into our plate reverb, EMT 140, really famous plate, 70s, maybe late 60s even. I feel like it might be late 60s. But EMT 140, you got 3 different colors here. You can look those up online. One's a bit brighter, a bit newer. Other one's a bit kind of old and darker. input filter. You can really play with the EQ. You have your own EQ thing here, which you can enhance width, mono, stereo, modulation, pre-delay, etc. I've got a 100% wet, and then I've got an EQ here just kind of scooping what I want.
And I fall in love with you.
What a beautiful reverb. And then after that, I go into our delay, same as the one in Logic. I'm using H delay, it's one of my favorites here.
I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do.
Gives us that dreamy vibe, and you can also use these guys here for EQ. I use this delay for a very long time and on many things. Let's have a listen to the track with everything in.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do. And I know not what to do, 'cause this love's got me hooked up on you.
And Logic plugins.
And I fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do. And I know not what to do, 'cause this love's got me hooked up on you.
UAD.
You fall in love with you, 'cause there's nothing I wouldn't do. And I know not what to do, 'cause this love's got me hooked up on you.
Let's go Logic.
Love's got me hooked up on you.
UAD.
Love's
Waves.
got me hooked up on you.
Now, you can't tell me that they both don't sound absolutely lovely. So really, you can just use, you might have to do a few more brush strokes. But at the end of the day, you can get a really good quality sounding vocal with any plugin. You can use UAD in Waves. Maybe it'll be a bit easier. But at the end of the day, you still have to know what the plugin does and how to use it. Now, you can really go in and then fine tune, pull the reverb back. Maybe it's a bit bright here. Maybe it's a bit dark. Granted. But at the end of the day, there's no reason you can't get a good quality result. And I was really led into thinking at the start of the game that, I need the best of everything. I need the best mic. I need the best plugins. I need the best speakers. All false. False, false, false. You really need to get great at your tools, and I'm here to make music fast again. Now, I want to thank you guys for watching today's show. I hope that's been helpful. You got to see the difference between mixing plugins with Logic plugins and mixing with UAD Wave plugin. And at the end of the day, you can still bake a pie, if you know what I'm saying. You can still make it taste great. It really don't make a difference. But at the end of the day, it's the end of the day, if you know what I'm saying. So I just want to thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. And if you guys want your questions answered, well, you just need to ask. Thanks, I'm Spike Leo, and I'll catch you next week on another YouTube video about mixing and coming first. Because if you second, you last, like Ricky Bobby and Baby Jesus. So amen. Spike Leo. Peace. Spike Leo. Spike Leo. Spike Leo. Spike Leo in the house. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, rib. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I'm vegetarian.